Everybody, John Jag Gay, our newest Hall of Famer. All right, who had the under on me crying early? My speech is in my other jacket. I could talk. Thank you, Jeff. Wow. Thank you all so very much, and special thanks to Brett, Josh, and Matt. So if I told you about my podcast, in all honesty, I crunched some numbers on WJPZ at 50. In the end, we ended up with 120 episodes. On average, you figure 30 minutes of back and forth to set up each one, about an hour to record, 2 hours to edit the audio, 1 hour for transcript and show notes, call it 4 or 5 hours a show. So I ballparked it about 500 hours for the project, and it really didn't feel like work. But I say that not to toot my own horn. Part of me feels like I kind of jumped the line into the Hall of Fame by putting in so many hours in such a short time. And so recently, 500 hours pales in comparison to what some of the people in this room have put into this radio station over 20, 30, 40, 50 years, as both students and alumni. Folks like Stephen Kurtz, Josh Wolf, Matt Del Signor, Dina Jacoby Lofheimer, Harry Waring, all current or future Hall of Famers. And that's just from my era. Never mind the folks who came before and after us. You know who you are, far too many to list in 10 minutes. In fact, everyone in this room is exceptionally good at something. I'd encourage you to think about how you can contribute to this amazing group. It is important for me, as you heard a moment ago, to recognize a WJPZ alum that is not here today, but is represented by both friends and immediate family there in the back there. As many of you know, Bill Leaf, my freshman year floor mate on Sadler 5, he was also my senior year roommate on South Campus, and really the best friend a guy could ask for. Z89 truly saved this homesick freshman who'd never been away from home. But if not for Bill's friendship and kindness, I might not have even made it over here to Waverly Avenue. In 2006, as you heard, Bill Leaf was killed by a drunk driver at the age of 25. Also a JPZer, having worked summer staff with his sister Maria and best friend Brian, who are both here today. Now, a born and raised Salt City native, Bill bled orange as much as anyone in this room. In fact, his AOL Instant Messenger screen name was Bill SU44. So I'm sure he had a hand in this because I got the news of this honor from Jeff Wade the day after my 44th birthday, and I'm entering the Hall of Fame as a 44-year-old. So thanks. Thank you, Bill. Back to Z89. I'd actually heard about the station before I even got to campus. One of my closest friends in high school was Jill Person, whose older brother, Brian Person, was WJPZ class of 1998. And then I sat next to this random girl in a physics class in the fall of 98. That'd be Andy DeCastro. She said, hey, you should come with me to Z89. She's here today, as well as lifelong friends Howie Chen and Chris Hughes, also WJPZ alumni who I'm thrilled to have in attendance. Many other close friends from other classes that couldn't be here but wanted to be, folks like Diane Brody, Michelle Badry, and Christy Vincent, and many more. As I mentioned, the beginning of freshman year was really tough for me. I was in tears when my parents left. Scott, my brother, is here. He remembers. My dad said, we'll give you that to get him in 6 weeks. My mom said, he'll be okay. Just give him a little bit of time. I racked up long-distance phone bills, calling my friends and family back home. And as a 17-year-old, I couldn't even go out to the country club with my floor mates. That was Labor Day weekend freshman year. If you were here that weekend in 1998, we had a microburst come through that knocked down trees all over campus. The dining hall workers went on strike. And even the football team got hosed on a BS pass interference call against Tennessee. What had I gotten myself into? I was a long way from home, and it wasn't until a month or two in that I gathered up the courage to walk over to Z89. Harry Waring welcomed me with open arms, always dropped what he was doing to talk sports with me, and welcomed me into the fold with Matt, Jana Fiorello, Beth Berlin Cohen, and so many others. Brett Peterman and others joined soon thereafter. Soon I was doing Saturday morning 6 a.m. shifts, picking up other shifts, and eventually working my way up the schedule. Oddly enough, I had joined WAER right away, thinking I'd be the next radio voice of the New England Patriots. I just hadn't realized everyone else there had kind of the same idea and how competitive it was. I did a semester of 4 a.m. sportscasts into a tape recorder and a semester of afternoons the same way. But oddly enough, before I was even cleared to be on the air at WAER, I was the senior announcer helping to oversee the air staff at JPZ. These, you, were and are my people. I made fast friends and eventually realized I enjoyed sports more as a fan than as a job, as before all the Boston championships. And while Harry and Dina saved the radio station our freshman year, our class felt that pressure junior year, as you may have heard. We were temporarily in a house on Ostrom Avenue while they rebuilt the station. We had some turnover at the senior levels of the station. I found myself VP of Ops, Jana became VP of Programming, Katie Bell became VP of Business, and Paul Chambers was our GM. And my chief role as VP of Ops was just to sign off on anything that Farrakani, Rob Crandall, Peterman, and others wanted to do on the tech side to keep us alive. And that group truly kept us on the air at a time where we needed to staff the station 24/7, 365, including a harrowing winter break where Paul, Brett Bossy, and I split the time just to keep us afloat. A big thank you to the WAER engineer who fixed our 5-disc CD changer so we could automate the overnights. Even though I had to pull one CD out of the rotation when I realized I burned the album cut of Eminem's Stan instead of the radio cut. Oops. That year was very challenging, but it prepared me for more hurdles in my career than I realized at the time. Senior year, I took a step back to be just on the air and advise as needed, much to the delight of Fagan's, Capital One, and HSBC Bank. But it really gave me a chance to savor the moment. After all, you only get one shot, one opportunity. You know the rest. Detroit. Senior year would also include an indelible moment for all of us. A Tuesday afternoon that was the only time in my life I went by John Gay on the air. September 11th, 2001. To see the way the station came together to deliver information to the campus that day and to support our own people who were directly affected showed what a family we were and still are. After school, every city I moved to in my 15-year radio career, I owe to somebody in this room. Jeff Wade gave me my very first shot in radio as a weekend board op in Providence, Rhode Island, which is why it was such a cool full circle moment to get the call about this honor from you, Jeff. Where's Josh? There he is. Josh Wolf graduated a year after me, but it was a connection of his that landed me my first full-time gig in Burlington, Vermont, and another one that got me to Detroit. And then it was an intro from Matt Friedman. Where's Matt? Matt's around here. That got me to New Orleans before returning to Detroit, as they say in Good Will Hunting, to go see about a girl. On the flip side, the WJPZ family was there for me after every radio budget-related layoff, all three, as well as when I transitioned out of radio and started my business as a podcast producer. Every step of the way, people in this room offered me advice, connections, moral support, and more. I've worked with several of you in podcasting, and a special shout out to Jen Neese-Connor. Where's Jen? Who got me in the door to work on a podcast at her company. Now when I pitch new clients, I can casually throw in, oh, and I worked on this podcast for Hilton Hotels. So, Jen, thank you for the street cred. If you're in this room, you don't need to tell me what a special place this radio station is. You've also got 120 podcast guests that can tell you the same thing. When my wife Ellen and I were dating, I brought her to a banquet. And by the way, for those of you in the room that don't know, that's when you know that a relationship is serious, when you put your significant other through this gauntlet of a weekend. She told me, I never understood why you kept in touch with so many Syracuse people. Now I get it. What a warm and welcoming group. What you have here is really special. As always, Ellen was right. Ellen actually deserves as much credit for the podcast as anyone. A friend of mine nicknamed her Saint Ellen when we were dating due to her patience with me in general. But that patience was very apparent on the countless nights and weekends where 15 more minutes on this edit was never 15 minutes. It delayed countless dinners, errands, and more. So thank you, Ellen. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the other patient female in our house, Jules, who had many of her dog walks delayed due to podcast editing. We lost her in November, But most of the edits you heard in that podcast were done with her lying right behind me. So the many dog and pet lovers in this room know how much Jules is missed. Okay, in terms of the podcast itself, a big thank you to my two executive producers, Matt Friedman and Josh Wolf, who seem to know everyone from the first and second quarter centuries of this radio station, respectively. They helped immensely with introductions and show prep. My thanks to Mo Cooper and Ed Lacombe for the imaging, Tina Perkins and Bames for editing several episodes each, and to all of the people in this room who made the time to come on the show or even just listen to it over 17,000 downloads later. It just goes to show you how much fun a podcast, even for a very specific audience, can be. Also, a shout out to my fellow inductee, Def Jeff Herbert. I'd been wrestling with the idea of editing the transcripts for the show, but when he thanked me for the effort, I knew it was an important piece to keep that going, because us Massachusetts natives need to stick together, right, Jeff? A confession, my cousin Jason, also here today, is a Hofstra University grad. They also have a radio station on campus, and it's an impressive communications program. And a few years ago, he told me about the Hofstra Radio Yearbook podcast, which featured alums of their radio station. He said, you ever think of doing something like that for WJPZ? So like all great ideas in the history of radio, this one was borrowed. But this group is simply too impressive to not tell the entire world about. I knew I was onto something when my first call was to, you guessed it, Scott McFarlane. Where's Scotty? He said something to the effect of, I'm actually on backup anchor duty at CBS today in case we lose our connection to Fort Myers in the aftermath of the hurricane. I can do it anytime you're ready, today. And then next, I talked to Dr. Wright, produced a longer album cut and a shorter radio edit of our convo. And we were off and running. Is he here? Is Dr. Rick here? He's not here at the moment. Okay. Yeah, you're right. We'd know. By the way, when you called him yesterday, Scotty, he was in the middle of the conference. He took your call in the middle of the room. Okay. Thank you. Somebody needed to do it. One of the most striking lines from the podcast actually came from Scotty Mack when he said, whether you're Greg Hernandez, class of 1975, or a grad from the 2020s, doesn't matter. You're just my friend from school. That's what this group is. But as Ellen points out to me all the time, this is your family. Probably 90% of the Syracuse people I still talk to are in this room. That includes 5 of the groomsmen at my wedding, and my DJ. And a big thank you to my brother Scott and my cousin Jason for surprising me when I walked out of the room earlier and they were standing in the hallway and did not know they were coming. And by the way, my brother has a 5-year-old and a 2-month-old at home and still made it here. So thank you, Scott. If you're one of my classmates from 2002 or any year, and this is your first time back on campus in a while, you probably won't recognize the dorms, the classroom buildings, and certainly not Marshall Street. R.I.P. Cosmos, R.I.P. Acropolis, and more. Chucks, thank you. Not my class, but for many. But the reason I'm back here every winter is the same reason all of you are. It's the people, the comfort, the adrenaline rush of seeing all you broadcasters, and the sense of family in this room that simply cannot be duplicated anywhere. That is why this award is the highest professional honor I'll ever receive. The amount of respect I have for all of you in this room, some I've known for almost 30 years, some I've gotten to know in the last few, simply cannot be measured. A huge thank you to the nominating and voting committees who have the Herculean task to narrow this room down to 2 or 3 people every year. So to be recognized by a group I hold in such high regard is really a pinnacle for me. So to all of my friends from school, from the very bottom of my heart, thank you so very much.
You can have that back, or new tradition, I think we're donating these to Ralphie Aversa's closet for other, so totally up to you. You can keep it or we can donate to Ralphie.
I am the last person that Ralphie should be getting fashion advice from.
John Jag Gay, the newest member. Peterman, Can you do me a quick favor? Can you give us a 360 of this room? Because I know if one thing that our new Hall of Famers would want was to see all of these amazing people that made it out to be a part of this incredible induction ceremony.